Welcome back to System Prompt. It's episode number 16, Peter. It's episode number 16.
Can't even fight it anymore. I think I've ran
It's
out of
episode
juice.
number 16 times we've
16,
done
let's
this.
go! No.
Welcome back to System Prompt. My name is Val.
And I'm Peter.
And we're here at episode number 16, and we have a good one for you guys. We've been kicking this idea around, and we figured we got to talk about it. The current state of enterprise AI education. So a lot of words put together in a bowl of salad. What does that mean, Peter? What are your thoughts on the current state of enterprise AI education?
Well, we have some statistics here, right? We have some numbers. So you have about $400 billion a year is going into corporate training spend. And 74% of companies say they're not actually keeping up with skill demand. AI skills job postings are up 109% between 2024 and 2026, right? One side overfunded and the other side underdesigned. What does that actually mean? Are these enterprise businesses actually able to skill up their staff or hire outside to bring in talent to actually execute their AI strategies? And if you're spending $400 billion cumulatively on training spend, and you're still talking about 3/4 of your businesses are not keeping up with skill demand, that's kind of insane. I mean, it's hard to sit there and actually like think about that number, 400 billion. But there's people that I talk to, right? And people are going to various different trainings. A lot of internal training is going on. I've talked to a couple of businesses that want to train their clients better on how to use AI. But the problem with that is that's extremely vague, right? Because you just say AI, what does that actually mean? Where's the actually like the meat and potatoes of that, right? Is it just using Cursor, Copilot, Claude Code? Is that what that looks like? 'Cause I feel like at this point, if you don't know how to use agentic coding tools, I don't even think you could be considered in a conversation of being an AI engineer, right? You need to use these tools in order to just have a knowledge of how they work, of how they run. I'm not saying that you have to use these tools to create software. I'm saying you need to understand what they are, their harnesses, how do they work. A lot of it works deterministically. What is under the hood? There's a lot of retries. There's a lot of software development verbiage that lives under the hood that makes sure is happening as the model is sourcing and building this code base. And again, we've talked about this in other episodes, right? Like, go ahead, Val.
I mean, yeah, no, the thing that jumps to my mind is who's training the trainers. The industry's moving super fast. And who's training the trainers? Are the trainers somebody who just watched a couple of videos and was like, oh, I know this, and let me go and now train people, or were they properly trained? Because a lot of the top AI engineers are working for the big guys, and it doesn't mean that there aren't people who are incredibly knowledgeable about these AI systems, but are these the ones? Are these the people who are training and running these courses? And then kind of distilling that knowledge to people within these organizations so they can make actionable decisions on how to actually leverage AI in a way that provides value to their organization. Because once that gap is introduced, we're really just kind of checking off boxes to the tune of $400 billion, but the equivalent value hasn't been produced. Because if we checked the boxes, we went and we learned agents, but we didn't truly learn it. And it feels like that's what you're saying.
Yeah. I mean, most of the people that I talk to, especially business-wise, they don't need agents, they need pipelines. They need working, established pipelines. Or they need to start at pipelines, not at agents, right? Because you start at agents, you're talking about autonomy, you're talking about tool selection. But if you think about pipeline, this part triggers this tool, the next part triggers this tool, the next part triggers this tool, right? And then you're actually separating in which the model lives in the harness, as opposed to the model autonomously selecting a lot of what these tools are, what these tools do, right? And then you have these abundance of ecosystems that have been pushed out there. So are you building Microsoft agents using Microsoft ADK and Copilot Studio? Are you building Google agents, Google ADK, SDK, building Google agents? Are you building Claude managed agents? Are you building Kimmy K agent swarms? You have all these verbiage, but nobody knows what the hell any of that actually really means, right? What does that actually look like in practice? A lot of that is just fun talk, building agents. You're building a Microsoft agent. Okay, what are you actually doing with it? Are you having it read your emails? Are you having it read your SharePoint? Are you attaching it to Microsoft Fabric, open to Microsoft Fabric, and having this plethora of, poking your data lake houses and, and extrapolating data and what are you doing with it, right? And that's where the adoption kind of hits a wall, because these people are like, okay, so now what do I do with this agent? All right, well, I know a job I don't like, I'm going to automate it doing this, but it's not system wide, it's not globally. It's especially that's what happens when you have internal people training to do this agent job. They think of things they don't like to do, and then they turn that into agentic AI. Now, what happens when you have 10 people on a staff doing 10 different things, because it's not uniform? So you can't standardize, and then we're still stuck in this position where people are just kind of throwing crap at the wall to see what sticks. Is that the future of AI? Is that what we're going to be doing? Should everyone individually learn how to make their own processes more efficient? Right? I mean, there's definitely one frame of thought to where your job is going to be contingent upon how well you can manage your agents that take care of your position. And that, sure, that's everybody for themselves. The business doesn't need to manage the agents. The person needs to for the specific job. But again, what does that look like?
I mean, it sounds like as you're talking, it sounds like I'm hearing a two-layered problem here. So there's one layer where you need proper AI training, meaning like you need to really understand the system to know what it can and can't do and where an agent should come in and actually solve a problem, and where this could be handled really well with regular automation tools that have been around for a long time. But I think the layer right above that is, are you good at identifying problems and turning that into actual solutions? There's people who sometimes understand their problems, but if they're also responsible in creating the solution with new technology that they don't quite understand, like, is that the best path to getting to where you want to go and being AI native? Because for those who can do it well, you're talking about they can 6x to maybe 28x their productivity. But for those who can't, this is a huge, like, it seems like the gap is even larger than I thought. Can you, okay, you know what's going wrong. You know what you need to do. Can you translate that into a workflow? And then do you know how to build out that workflow? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, based on some of these numbers that we've uncovered, it's definitely going to be no, they don't know how, right? Because we talked about the 400 billion that they're spending. We're talking about 74% of leaders still saying that they lack skills to compete despite the spend. And then you have that shift, right? It's publishing model, courses completions, dynamic enablement, and then, personalization and flow of work, blah, blah, blah. You have AI native learning and development adopters are 6 times more likely to exceed financial targets, which, yeah, because if you're optimizing your making your workflow more efficient, you're likely to see more benefit. 28 times more likely to unlock employee potential, right? Uh, but here's the catch: fewer than 5% of companies that has actually deployed AI native learning tech. And the vendor buzzword is super tutors, right? It's conversational, personalized coaching for static LMS courses, which sounds great, but you're hoping that the person that's putting together these super tutors has an understand as a deep as enough as a deep enough understanding of what they're doing to actually make sure that that is consistently being updated in order to keep track of all the changes. No, some things haven't changed, right? You still have RAG. We still talk about agents. We're still talking about large, LLM integration. But how many people have actually produced something that works in terms of RAG? And I'm going to say not that many. I've seen a lot of people make it attempts to tackle AI memory, and when I and even if we backtrack even before that, does the pipeline need memory? Some people are just don't understand the difference between context, shared context, and memory between agents, right? Uh, so either are you storing the context somewhere until the pipeline is done? How does the context in which the parameters in which the execution needs to be done in, right? So if you have a web search and you string it across a couple of different agents, one is doing the web search agent, one is synthesizing, and the other one's validating. Well, how do you make sure that they all have the same context to actually execute the task that they need to do? Um, Otherwise, it goes from one agent, right? It starts at the web search. The web search agent goes, "Great, I found these sources." It goes to synthesis, and the agent goes, "What am I doing? Why did you give me this?"
Well, I think what you're talking about is probably at the root of this conversation, where having domain expertise and understanding how agents work can help to determine how to create a solution that an enterprise can actually use. So when somebody just goes and says, "Oh, use Claude because Claude is great," but not taking into account, well, how does this workflow need to be executed in order to provide real value? Where if you're working with an agent for a long-term project, it should have memory, should be able to pick up where you left off and build upon that to help you to execute this workflow. But if you're doing something where it's a quick research project, you've over-engineered it, and now all of a sudden this cost is rising, but it's not equivalent to the task that it's executing. And over time, a quarter passes and the finance guys are looking at this and saying, "Wow, we're spending a lot of money, but where is the value coming from?" It's like what you're talking about, and you just said it simply, but you're talking about that level of domain expertise where when you're being trained, is that information being passed along? When you're saying, "I want to create a pipeline," okay, what type of pipeline do you need to create? How does it need to be executed? What are all the things that you need to take into account to maximize that? Because if you don't, the solutions fall short. So, are the people who are training understanding that? Or are they just saying, use Claude because I've used Claude, give it a couple skills, and then let it run? And then you can't go one layer deeper, but when you need to go one layer deeper, you're stuck because there's no outlet to continue that journey. You can't go to the instructor because they may not know it. There's no domain expert in your organization. You have the budget, you have the will, but there is no way. And this seems like the trap that a lot of organizations are falling into. And where do they go to get the experts? Where do they go to fill in this gap? Where do they go to find credible knowledge? Because if you're not asking the right questions, your LLM is not going to produce the answers that are of quality to make organizational decisions, especially when you're talking about these large budgets.
I mean, yeah, right. And you're talking about boot camps that are 12 to 24 weeks, costing between 10 to 15,000. It's a few years ago we were just talking about those same boot camps are teaching prompt engineering. Now they have to teach AI, RAG, and MCP, and even when to use MCP and when not to use MCP. I feel like that's a huge question because people learn MCP and then they want to put everything into an MCP. And that's just like, well, you don't need like that. Slow down there. And I still feel like we're still heavily in the experimentation phase, and I think that there's a disconnect between how businesses believe that AI should be accelerating us tenfold versus we need to learn this before we can accelerate tenfold. So they're trying to get the value because the models are so smart, especially when you think of models like Fable 5, who can pull intent and who could do all these things. And it might run a little bit slower than 4.8, but apparently you can one shot a CRM with Fable 5. How much money does that actually cost? What can you do? Why are you one shotting a CRM? Right? You know, this all boils back to episode 1, right? This all boils back to episode 1 when we were talking about software as a service uh versus large language model. And
I like the callback there, Peter. I like
well, it's true, right? It's like it's true because I see this all the time with people. People are like, well, why can't the AI just do this? Well, it isn't that smart, is it? It's like it's just pattern matching. It's pattern matching. It's thinking. There's some sort of harness under there. It's making sure that it's going through the prompt. You have things like if it iterates over for say 5 or 6 times, it'll give it a re-anchor prompt so it can bring it back. If it goes too far off left field, it's only going to go so many iterations before it actually comes to completion, right? It shouldn't sit there and just iterate forever, which sometimes it feels like, from my understanding, what Fable 5 does. Now, is it running through 24, 25, 30, 40, 50 iterations? How fast is it actually doing that in? What does that cost you as the end user? Should it even be doing that many iterations? But these are all questions you have to ask yourself because these are the things that are actually attached to these AI pipelines. Uh,
You brought up a good point, man, and I think maybe if we're talking about, okay, the education gap is real and companies adopting true AI services, but you brought up a really good point when you're talking about, are they getting the systems and running, or are they getting the systems and actually learning and training? I think there does have to be a deep breath moment where you're either hiring people who are AI native. I know you'll like that term, but we'll use it for now. It, you, for simplicity purposes, is either you're hiring those people, which they're even hard to find, who you don't have to train, or you're taking the time to properly train your team, meaning that this is not going to be something that's done in a weekend where the 5 people who went to this weekend retreat now could come in and teach you all that there is to know about how to incorporate AI into your company. It's just too much because, okay, let's say even if you did that, 2 months later, the system they may have learned may not even be as relevant anymore. You touch lightly upon memory, but memory is its own beast in and of itself, and there's a lot of different directions that you could go, but it's such a critical part to getting your systems to work properly. Because when they fail, there's a good part of the reason why it fails may be because of memory in some sort of way and how you're using it in relation to your workflow. And do you think that, look, what do you think is the approach? You either hire AI native people. I'm doing this to mess with you, uh, or but they're hard to find who are truly trained. Or does a company really need to think about this training not being a one-off situation, but bringing in people who can remain within a department for an extended period of time to really get the department leveled up? Because there has to be a solution somewhere, and fast, fast, fast doesn't seem to be working to the tune of 400 billion, because it's going to be 400 billion plus. What do you think is the route that a company can take? These are not easy situations that they're in, but they got to choose something.
yeah, look, companies have to do something, which means somebody. Okay, so I attended this 4-hour seminar on being the head of AI. Right, it was this company called Section who was pushing it out, and sometimes I always just jump into things to see different perspective, to see what kind of what are people talking about? What does it actually mean? Does it make sense? Is it something I can apply to myself? Right, I'm always additive. Right, I always like looking at different perspectives to see.
Keep your ear to the ground, brother. You keep your ear to the
Come on,
ground.
man, you know me. I do my best. You know me. I do my best. And the one thing they said is that picking a head of AI isn't enough. You need a team. You have to train the team. The head of AI is not going to be the person that's going to be doing your implementation. The head of AI is going to be the one that's orchestrating it between the people that is under is on his team. Now, in a lot of situations, people award one member of AI, and then they think their existing IT staff should be enough to actually fulfill. Which, you know what? If their existing IT staff has done what they need to do to train and keep up, then that's absolutely enough. But if, I mean, now this is going to sound terrible, but if all of they've done is N8N and like go high level and make or Zapier, then they haven't really scratched the surface of what exactly is possible. They haven't scratched the surface of what an AI pipeline actually looks like in order to do this. So what you end up with this you end up with this situation that they understand things theoretically, but they don't really understand things in application, right? And that's a dangerous place to be because now you're just effing around and finding out, right? Uh, but on the flip side, that's where everybody kind of is right now. What works, what doesn't work. You know, people 2 years ago said RAG memory is the only thing to do, and and a lot of people were very hand wavy about it. Just add RAG to it. Like, have you ever added RAG to it? Do you even understand how to engineer RAG? Are you if you work in an enterprise situation of a few thousand people that are hitting your RAG that are hitting your vector DB constantly, increasing latency across, creating bottlenecks. Obviously, you have to talk about spinning up additional nodes. But I don't want to go too deep on that just yet. We could talk about it.
Yeah, but the
Yeah.
rock smells what you're cooking.
Yeah. So, and then you end up in a situation, you end up in a situation where if you don't have a properly engineered RAG database, then you're not really getting anything, right? You don't really understand that you end up in a situation where you're just you're embedding things, you don't know how you're chunking, you don't know what your retrieval strategies are, you don't know what re-ranking strategies you're employing. Uh, you don't have any idea about graph rag or how to relate some of these across to relate some of these entities across your knowledge of how the AI interprets what your information is in the back end. Uh, and it gets really detrimental, right? And even in some situations, you don't want graph rag, right? There's a situation where graph rag can increase the time it takes for just like single hop retrievals. How do you how do you how do you sit there and in this such vast field have an understanding of how to engineer these these pipelines, these memory pipelines, when it's so deep? You need to have hands on. You need to have made a ton of mistakes. Like, whenever I hear somebody be very hand wavy about memory or just do it, what do you have? You have file based memory, you have RAG memory, you have graph RAG, you have OKF, open knowledge format that Google just pushed out, and everyone's talking about what is the possibilities of this. It's really cool, but it's very simple. It's literally a table of contents.
Yeah,
Let's you want to break it down
fancy
into the
name.
uh, uh, you want to break it down into it's like, this is what I do. Any concept, any big concept that I sit there and I'm just like, what the hell is this? I break it down into its core. People are like, well, that's kind of simple. Yeah, but it helps me understand new things very quickly. If I can sit there and break something down into its simplest form, then I can understand it. Now, if you can understand that OKF is a table of index for a corpus of knowledge. So if the AI is seeing the table of contents before it's hitting your RAG, it goes, this is here. I can look for it here. Let's pull up all the similar semantic search, but we can tighten the semantic search to only this portion. All right. Well, maybe what you're retrieving is that much better. How many points better is your retrieval going to? What's your accuracy score at that point, right? Those are the things that you actually have to test and adjust based on what's going on. The cool thing is OKF you can put in front of just about anything because again, it's
Human read, machine read.
yeah, and any sort of memory uh, that you've decided to bake in. Like, what are the biggest problems with file based memory? Is that it's file based, and every single day it creates a new file. And that corpus of knowledge is going to end up so big that it's going to break down because it's not semantic search. It's not embedded. It's actually, you're just taking the each chunk and pushing it through to the AI each time, right? Whenever it needs to search something in its memory base. Uh, so, nothing is as easy as it seems. Now, I've done a whole gamut of memory possibilities just to highlight how is training how is training actually hopefully applying some of these engineering techniques to make sure that you can do these things. That's what these businesses need RAG, right? Businesses need a model that can source data and source data intelligently.
What it sounds like is like, because you said the head of AI needs to hire a team. So first of all I hear are new roles being created. Where if you're a company and you're not considering hiring somebody who's the head of AI, you may be in trouble. Um, and then that head of AI now goes in with their domain expertise, where they're on site for an extended period of time, meaning like they're not just there for a weekend and then they're moving on. This is an investment, a long term investment in the growth and success of your company with implementation of AI. They go and hire a team. And the people that they hire now are interwoven inside of the company to now go in and properly introduce AI into all of the departments where the things that you're talking about, the nuances of how this technology is working, how this technology actually works, is being taken into account when these systems are pushed to their limits or unfortunately when they fail most of the time. Where there's somebody there that says, hey, no, it's not failing because AI doesn't work. It's failing because you didn't consider these 5 things that you couldn't have, learned in a weekend, or even if you heard it, you didn't learn it, you didn't internalize it or become an expert in it. Now I know there's some companies, and we've covered this before in previous episodes, where a company like Anthropic, they got the enterprise companies to commit to using their models to the tune of a ton of money. And it seems like their next step is, and OpenAI has followed suit. Now they're going to hire people to forward deployed engineers to go and sit within those companies and try to build out those workflows. The only problem with the forward deployed engineers are they also training the team members, or are they just coming in with a solution to these problems to kind of keep them spending with these models, which is a happy point. But I think what you're talking about is a much more long term permanent solution where this is how it should be played out. Head of AI is the new role. If you're a company, that's the first way to tackle this problem. Go get ahead of AI. That person's job as the head of AI is to not be the person that's the workhorse for everything. They go hire a team based on the needs of the company, and that those team members are also AI experts. And with that team, it may seem it may seem like a big burden on your balance sheet when you're hiring all these people, but if their job is executed properly, you should see a increase in productivity, because their job is to stay there and go and build these systems around all of your workflows. Answer the questions that need to be answered, understand the problems at a fundamental level, not replace people. I just want to make this clear, because this is where the fear starts to come in. But they're there to build and maintain systems that allow the people who have domain expertise to go and be 5, 10, 20 times more productive. Because I think the way they were doing it originally is they were replacing the people who had the domain expertise, and then now there's nobody with domain expertise. You got people there putting the AI systems, but there's nobody there to refine and continue to tweak it. Is that how you're envisioning this potential solution, this middle ground? Or
Yeah, yeah, exactly like that. I mean, your head of AI needs to be in charge of AI education in terms of your company. That should be falling under your head of AI. Look, the forward deployed engineer option is going to be fantastic for a lot of these enterprise businesses, but I think ultimately it creates this detachment, right? How does a forward deployed engineer going to need to go into these businesses, and they're going to need to understand not only the technological enough, right? But they need to understand the business enough to actually be able to solve some of these businesses' problems. They need to have it needs to be ingrained in them. And when you're paying these forward deployed engineers that come from Anthropic and come from OpenAI, well, OpenAI and Anthropic are going to need to pay these people out of the out, out of what they're charging these businesses, and they also going to need to make a buck. So you're going to be paying extremely top dollar for these full deployed engineers from the start. These are not going to be short-term contracts with these forward deployed engineers if they need to know and understand your business intimately. Why wouldn't you spend that? If you're going to spend that money externally, spend the money internally, because you're never going to stop having to pay for this. You're always going to have to pay for somebody to come tweak systems, create new features, fix the features. Things break constantly. You're going to need it, like, develop that internally. Develop that through your AI head of AI. The head of AI is there because he's going to be working with the people that have intimate knowledge of the business. He's going to learn, or she's going to learn the business intimately and be able to apply that from an AI mindset within their own team. And I think this is where you have the detachment with, right? Because you're sending a lot of these businesses, what they're doing is they're sending these people over to train. You're going to go train in using Copilot Agent Studio to build agents within your business. And then we're going to help you build the first agent. And then from there, you're on your own. But they don't know what the business problems are. They don't know intimately what these trainers, right? They don't know what these people are going to be building. It's like going to a workshop and learning something really cool and then having to go home and apply it. And you realize you're sitting there and you're just staring at the screen going, I don't really know or understand enough about this. All of us have been there, right? We know what that looks like. Like, we really want to do this, but all of a sudden you still have to learn something completely new and completely foreign that you've just spent whatever you spent on that workshop, but you still don't have your week-long, 2-week-long, month-long workshop isn't going to help you build a graph rag database with open knowledge format sitting in front of it with right. It's impossible. It's not enough time. um and that's the whole crux of the position. And your head of AI needs to be knowledgeable in those things, needs to learn, like, that's where the education starts. Education needs to be a permanent thing within the business. Now, if you're a small business and you're running a small shop, then hopefully there's somebody out there that can bulk teach a bunch of small businesses and small shops and stay attached to them. But if you're a big enterprise, 10,000, 20,000 person business, you're outsourcing your entire understanding to Accenture.
I mean, well, $400 billion is being spent somewhere. The question is it being spent as efficiently as possible? Can you look at the end of the year and say, "Phew, money well spent"? We can see the productivity across the entire industry while you're taking the smoke for reducing your workforce by 10 to 15%. Or are you saying, man, we may have screwed up secretly? Hey, let's go and hire some of those people, but you fractured these relationships with people that have been with the company for years, talented domain experts. And maybe that's where the head of AI is making, they're that central source of truth where they understand the business enough and they understand the AI industry enough to, they're the person that are making these decisions as opposed to somebody in the C-suite who doesn't have enough information. Or even worse, they're drumming up the new McKinsey hustle where these consultants are coming in and charging whatever they want to consult for in perpetuity. And if they make a mistake, it's, oh well, we tried, like, yeah, there should be somebody there. And I think we talked about this. There's enough people who are skilled enough who don't want to necessarily work for Anthropic or OpenAI. They want to be closer to the game. They have the skills out there. But the question is, are people hiring them to be the head of AI? Are they willing to make that long-term investment for, maybe, I don't want to be super dramatic, but for the future survival of their company? Maybe I'm being a little dramatic, but maybe not. Because some people are going to get it right, and then I think that, unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to get it wrong to the tune of, man, we can't survive this. All we did was give more time for our competition to get it right and run circles around us, because that's really what's going to happen in 3 to 5 years from now. Not all industries, but there's going to be some industries where you can't keep up with the competition because their output is 5 times as much and their pricing is 3 times as less. And they still give a quality experience, actually probably even more quality because they're not bogged down with busy work anymore. They're really building strong and meaningful relationships with their clients and their champions and all the people that are decision makers because they have the time to do it. They can understand their problems at a more fundamental level because they're not bogged. I remember who was that? I don't want to misspeak. I think it was Best Buy. They wanted to invest in making their organization much more technologically sound for the future, and they took an initial hit, and they were getting criticized a lot about it. But once they got over that hump, they were better. They're better prepared for the future, and a lot of people who didn't are not around anymore. It's like, are you that company? And I probably should have researched that, a little bit better. But I believe Best Buy is the example I want to make, and one of the many companies that have done that. I think that's where we are in the AI space, where you know that's the risk that you take, where you're giving your competitors an opportunity to catch up, and they're using that free time to really go and build solid relationships with their customers, and those kind of relationship that make it incredibly difficult, if not impossible, for you to ever rip that customer from their clutches.
Yeah, and do we I think it's gonna be interesting to see because I know Anthropic and OpenAI, they're trying to really, like, train up and hire all these forward deploy engineers, but will it be enough in these settings when you really need to have a really deep understanding of the business problem, not so much so the technological aspects, right? It's really gonna be interesting to see if they're able to actually keep up, or is this going to be some s not wasted money, right? I don't wanna say wasted money, but I wanna say, like, if you're spending millions of dollars in a contract with OpenAI and Anthropic, and you're still struggling the same way because now it's on the flip side, right? Right? You initially had a bunch of people with a lot of business domain knowledge, but not enough technical knowledge to execute. Now you're having a ton. You're spending millions of dollars on this technical talent, but they don't have enough actual business domain knowledge to actually execute. And you really don't understand how much time you need to give these people to actually execute this on the business side, right?
Yeah,
And you end up in this problem. But this all ties into having an AI education problem. This all ties into having uh, certain expectations that probably don't live up to the test of actual rolling out a production environment where these things are prolific and they're actually increasing efficiency. Uh, you just it's interesting to see. The cool thing is I'm seeing a lot of these businesses and a lot of companies are now reaching out and going, okay, we need to learn. But we're not surface layer learning anymore. We want to learn about implementation. We want to learn about what can I do to actually have this roll out? And the unfortunate part for them is that everyone is still learning. If we were in a situation where things were standardized, it would be a little bit easier for people to actually navigate in the space, but it's not, right? So it's not just you go through a couple of weeks of intense boot camp agent building, and then all of a sudden you're able to roll out these agents, and then the learning just stops. But again, that's part of is the current state of enterprise AI learning. Is it enough? If you're spending $400 billion and three quarters of these businesses just can't keep up, then this you're spending, but there's no return right now on what it is you think you're doing. Your pace is either too fast or maybe too slow, or maybe, it's like Goldilocks, right? You need to find that you need to
yeah,
find
the
that
sweet
bowl
spot,
that's just, yeah.
you
Uh,
know, and embrace the continued learning.
yeah.
Embrace that the continued learning is what's necessary because the industry is moving so fast, and you just got to embrace it. It's not comfortable, but it's also not comfortable spending a ton of money and getting no return on that investment. Falling behind, not knowing what's going on, feeling like you're out of the loop. The fear of, man, we've lost a bunch of customers and we don't know how to get them back efficiently. These are real stuff that you're talking about, man. And they're being discussed, but are they being discussed with real tangible answers and solutions to those problems. They're not easy, but it's not. It's like these are not easy discussions that we're having right now, but these are real as it gets.
I mean, it's part of the times, right? These are the times that we live in today. And I wanted to thank everybody for tuning in. Look, we have this is a lot of this is question marks, and sometimes I don't like to leave people on question marks, or that's not something where we like to live. We like to leave people on some sort of certainty or some sort of direction, and the direction here is you have to continue learning. You have to continue learning. You have to continue growing. You have to continue until something standardized pushes out, right? Because right now you're working, like we said, we highlighted, you're working Microsoft, Google, open source. You delve into open source, and all of a sudden there's a whole array of different things that you need to learn pertaining to each different model. Uh, but next week we're going to be doing a deep dive into AI memory systems, and I'm really excited for that. And I know Bala is also. Uh, and I just want to thank you guys for tuning in. If you guys have any additional things you want to add to it, or just tell us your experiences, please do. But outside of that, you guys have a great one. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you. Later.